You're listening to the Cliff Notes Podcast, a fan podcast dedicated to the Twilight Saga fan podcast. This is our reaction to Cliff Ravenscraft's reaction to the Twilight series, chapter by chapter. Listen as we see it through Cliff's eyes.
Okay, let me just take a sip of my syrup here, and I'll just give I'll do some quick housekeeping as I sip on my syrup.
Well, welcome to Cliff Notes, you guys. This is episode 4. While we wait for Kim to get going with what he has to say, this is episode 4. So go ahead, Kim.
Thank you for that introduction. I just wanted to start this episode off by saying that we have a big announcement that we want to share with everybody, and it'll probably come at the end of the episode, unless we forget. Then it'll come next week, but probably going to come at the end of the episode. And we have a big announcement coming up.
It'll come at the end of the episode.
Let's hope we don't forget to announce it. But yeah, so Stay tuned for this big announcement coming up at the end. So make sure you listen all the way to the end.
Okay. Thank you for that, Kim. And I wanted to start out with a quote that is an Edward quote, and a quote that I don't think that you're going to be too happy about, but I think that it's important that we get this out in the open and that we let the fans in on our drama and on our personal lives. I just like to start out with this quote, and this is Edward. If you locked an alcoholic in a room full of stale beer, he'd gladly drink it, but he could resist if he wished to. If he were a recovering alcoholic. Now, let's say you placed in that room a glass of 100-year-old brandy, the rarest, finest cognac, cognac, and filled the room with its warm aroma. How do you think he would fare then? We silently sat looking into each other's eyes, trying to read each other's thoughts. He broke the silence first. Maybe that's not the right comparison. Maybe it would be too easy to turn down the brandy. Perhaps I should have made our alcoholic a heroin addict instead. So what you're saying is I'm your brand of heroin? I teased, trying to lighten the mood. He smiled swiftly, seeming to appreciate my effort. Yes, you are exactly my brand of heroin. And the reason that I bring that up is because not only is that in the chapter that we're reviewing today, that Cliff is reviewing, it's about addiction. And addiction is a powerful and heartbreaking thing when it happens to someone that's so close to you as you are to me. And I'm saying this today because I have gone to court. I have obtained a court order to send you to a treatment facility. It's a very beautiful facility. It's in California. It's called Addictions Orchard. And the reason that I am sending you that is because I have been worried. The fans have been worried about your cough syrup addiction. And it's just become this, it's become a spiral. It's spiraled and spiraled, and we're all very worried about you. And this place called Addiction Orchard, they specialize in cough syrup addiction. They only accept 14 patients a year. Out of the thousands and thousands of applicants, only 14 get in. And you were accepted, Kim. And when I heard that news, I fell to my knees just crying. We've got all of your things packed. We've got a transporter named Brad. He's actually standing outside of the room that you're recording in right now, and he's waiting to take you to Addictions Orchards right after we finish filming this episode. So I'm relieved, I'm happy, and I'm excited for you and your new life.
Well, Brad's just going to have to wait then. Brad, if you can hear me. Brad, can you hear me? Brad can't hear me. But if Brad was able to hear me, I would be saying to him, haha, joke's on you, the door's locked, can't come in here.
He can hear you. I just notified him that he's not allowed to speak on the podcast because he hasn't signed any type of forms or anything that have allowed his voice to appear. But go ahead.
I'm gonna try and get him to say something halfway through. See what
He
happens.
won't. He's
And then
good at his job.
let's hope he says something, because then we could make a little money off of his reaction to us.
We can't use him in the show, is what I'm saying. He hasn't signed any papers that have allowed us to use his voice and his likeness.
Okay. Well,
he's a very nice man. You're going to enjoy spending the next, I don't know, how far of a car ride is it? It's going to be a long car ride with Brad.
Okay, well, I don't even feel like I need to say that I'm not going, but I'll say it, I'm not going. And
okay.
So we can
That's
choose
fine.
Yeah.
You think that you're not going. We should get into Cliff Notes, but just know that you are going because legally you're obligated to go. So let's get on with it.
Well, let's just get into the Cliff Notes then. Okay.
Okay.
Because, and I'm not worried. Hey, I'm cool as a cucumber because
I can tell. And I'm glad that you're not worried because it's going to be, Brad has medications that will help you sleep throughout the car ride. If you're,
I got something in me right now that's making me sleep, and it's this nectar I'm drinking, and I'm going to continue to drink it. And
okay.
And I feel like I've said this, but it's more of a I'm not just doing it to get messed up. I'm doing it as a spiritual thing to I'm trying to channel people here, man. You know, I'm trying to use it use my tea to channel people like Steph and Cliff. So I hope that they see that. I'm not going to go, but I hope that they would understand that over at Addiction Orchards. They probably wouldn't. But anyway, so into the Cliff Notes.
All right.
Do you remember any of the chapter names that got reviewed in this episode of the Twilight Saga podcast?
Honestly, I barely have any Cliff Notes here, and that's because Stephanie was doing a majority of the talking, and I just couldn't stand to listen when she talks. I can't stand it. I did make a few notes down. I did jot a few notes down in my journal, my Cliff journal.
Okay. Well, so I do have one Cliff Note here, and it's about how Edward would go into Bella's room in this chapter. And it's a thing that's been going on in other chapters, but it gets discussed quite a bit by Cliff and Steph in this episode. Cliff is disturbed by, and let me just say, they don't even say that he goes into the bedroom. It's implied because her window is unlocked. It's implied that Edward keeps it unlocked so he could go into her bedroom and do God knows what. Mm-hmm. So Cliff is really creeped out by this. He doesn't like that Edward is going into this room. And Steph said something about this and was just trying to play the devil's advocate here, but it really kind of like surprised me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, what she said. She said to Cliff, "Oh, well, you should think about what you're saying because there was a time in your past when you were a man who was going into 17-year-old's bedroom too."
Right.
And I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe that they're saying this on air. He's been going into 17-year-olds' bedrooms, and I don't know what age he was when this was going on or what they were trying to say, but it really caught me off guard. And as you know, I'm a Cliff fan. I love Cliff. Steph is not. I mean, I put up with her, but I mean, so I want to be on his side with things, obviously, but this has really caught me off guard."
Me too. And another thing that I noticed in the very beginning of the episode was that Cliff said that he wanted to make this a short episode because he had something to do right after this. And now that you say that, I wonder if he had to sneak into any 17-year-olds' rooms. Or another theory that I had, maybe he's off to work on the movie.
Yeah, he was in a huge hurry this episode. He kept on asking how long they had been recording and how long they had left, and
right.
They really cut it short. They hardly reviewed any of the chapters that they were saying that they were going to review, and I assume that next week they're just going to go straight to the chapters after that. They're just going to forget about these.
And if you guys haven't listened to our previous episodes, me and Kim have a theory that Cliff himself is working on making a new Twilight movie that suits him better than the one that he has seen, because he's he's not happy with the original Twilight movies, and that's why we think that he's working on his own masterpiece. And this episode of Cliff Notes really backed up that theory. He was talking about the movie quite a bit. He called it pitiful, and he brought it up a lot that he didn't care for the movie. And I, the whole time, every time I heard him bring it up, I got a little bit of excitement going through my body. Of I can't imagine what his movie is going to be like when Cliff directs the Twilight movie and redoes it.
Yeah, and like the movie being pitiful, I would say that this episode, because of the intrusion you added to the beginning about me going to rehab, which is not going to happen. This episode will also be kind of pitiful. I would say the listeners are probably going to tune out the second that they hear you saying that.
Not true. I think that the listeners have been concerned. They've been reaching out to my private Instagram account, my private Twitter account, and they've been saying, "Hey, we're worried about Kim. Why don't you step in and do an intervention? We'd love to hear it on the next episode." And I took that as a sign from the universe, or whatever you want to call it, God, whatever, that it was time that I did sit down and talk to you, because this has been going on for a while. And ever since you wanted to be more like Bella in the Twilight books, you were taking all this cough syrup and trying to achieve more of this Bella mindset, have you? And it's spiraling. It's spiraling out of control. And I've lost enough sleep over it.
Well, I'm glad that God was having a discussion with you. I didn't know that you were that important, but whatever.
Well, I must be, and you must be too, because this God was speaking to me about you. So it must mean that you're important as well, which is why all the fans care so much, and we love you so much. We just want to see you get better, honestly.
Well, I'm doing just fine, thank you. And I'm just gonna continue to use this as a spiritual medicine.
So getting back into the Cliff Notes, all of my Cliff Notes, well, almost all of them, have to do with the movie and how Cliff feels about the movie. And they thought that the movie did a terrible job at portraying this chapter and Cliff says that he's been thinking about this part of the movie a lot recently. And this is the chapter when Edward is in the field and they're having this romantic moment. He's telling her that he's addicted to her. He says that he hates how that scene was done, and that there's one part of the movie that he likes, and that is his sparkling skin. Other than that, the whole movie is trash to him. The only thing he wants to keep is the sparkling skin. He says the movie really portrayed that skin, how he was thinking about it when he was reading the book and thinking about the skin.
Yeah, he loves the skin. And when I look at my Cliff Notes, I don't have a lot of notes about how he was complaining about the movie. Just because when I hear that, I just kind of zone out, because he says it so much that I just go, okay, I know he's working on the movie, and I'm not going to pressure him I'm not going to put any more pressure than necessary on it. So, but when I hear you say that, I remember I begin to remember a lot of these details. So one is, so in this episode of the Twilight Saga podcast, they discuss the scene where Bella meets the Cullens for the first time, meets all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the house that was in the movie wasn't at all like the house that was in the book. And it's really not okay. It's just not okay to do that, because they describe the house completely exactly like how it's supposed to look in the book. And then the people who made the movie said, "Oh, I don't care. I don't want to build a house that looks just like that. We're going to use this other house." They didn't have the money,
Right.
have the time, they didn't have the this or the that. And Cliff, and obviously what were they thinking? Cliff's going to see this. It's really not cool. But another thing that happened in that scene that is the reason that I brought it up was because of Jasper's power. They didn't include that in the movie. His power to calm people down. which is a superpower that Cliff really likes. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Maybe he himself needs to be calmed down, but he
Oh,
likes that, and it wasn't included in the movie.
interesting. I think that Cliff just has a fascination with these superpowers, and that any of the powers are going to fascinate him.
I don't know. This one seemed to be his favorite power, the power to calm people down with your mind.
He did have a very strong fascination with it, and I did notice that. Something else that he was unhappy with, and I will say, all of our Cliff notes, well, all of mine truly are about Cliff's interpretation of the movie. It has nothing to do with these chapters. And this episode of Cliff Notes, I was kind of bored with it because it was just all Cliff talking about the movie, and he didn't really have anything to say about these chapters. And I wanted to know what he thought about the chapters, not the movie. But he also said that in the book, Bella was very scared when she jumped on Edward's back and took a ride. But in the movie, she seemed to be enjoying it. What's with the inconsistencies here is what he's asking. Why can't we just have the movie and the book align and be one? Why do they have to be so different?
Yeah, we put up a clip on YouTube the other day about Cliff's emotional exploration into some certain things, and it's got me thinking about emotional accuracy. When you portray something in a movie, it can be accurate in many different ways or inaccurate in many different ways. But in particular, emotional accuracy and being able to act like you're enjoying something or not enjoying something, that's important. And I think that's something that Cliff is gonna import into his flick when it comes out.
Well, Cliff did say that as he's reading this book, or should I say listening, because he's an audio guy, as he's reading this book, he's imagining these people that he saw in the movie. So, interestingly enough, he seems to associate the characters from the movie with the characters from the book, which is strange considering how much he hated the movie. And I originally had a theory that he was going to cast Mike, the actor who played Mike in the Twilight movies, as Edward, because I thought that he would have made a great Edward.
And he originally auditioned to play Edward, so
Exactly. And that was one of my theories, and that was something that I was really excited and looking forward to. I thought, wow, seeing Mike as Edward would be wonderful, and maybe Edward could play Mike, or whoever this guy is who played Edward, Robert Pattinson, he could play Mike. And I thought that would be an interesting twist on the Twilight movies, but it sounds like from the way that Cliff's talking that he's going to use all the same actors in his movie and play and have those actors play all the same parts. So I thought that was kind of I was a little disappointed because I was kind of excited about seeing those different actors play those roles. But what did you have any theories about that? That just kind of interested me.
I mean, really, I think that you're right about it. I thought that he was going to have the same actors play them in his movie as well. But when you think about it, I mean, I don't see that going over well.
You don't see the same actors going over well, or the different actors?
No, it didn't work the first time. I don't understand why Cliff would do it again.
Well, that's why I had my original theory. However, it sounds like Cliff's imagining these characters as he's listening to the audiobook. He also says that he's only seen the movie once, folks, and he says he's looking forward to seeing it again, knowing that he's going to be disappointed. And he's excited about that. And there's something that, I mean, now that you brought up the Jasper thing, maybe he is kind of interested in emotions and how he can get himself to feel different emotions. And I think he's excited about feeling disappointed.
Yeah, he's an emotional junkie. He's always looking for the new thing to feel, it seems like. He's kind of all over the map with it in these episodes as well. I'm looking at a cliff note here where I actually have a quote. It's going to be the first quote that I've ever done on the show. So this isn't the
I don't.
announcement.
I
What's that?
disagree, but go on. Go ahead.
Well,
Well,
it'll be.
you usually open up with a quote, so that seems like you're just kind of lying to the viewers and the listeners.
Well, this will be the first time I've done a quote on the podcast. At least a cliff quote.
That's interesting because you've done exclusively Cliff quotes on this podcast. You've opened with a Cliff quote every single time that we've
that's
done
possible. In editing, I have to throw a lot of the trash away, and it's usually a lot of the stuff that you're saying, but sometimes I have to kind of trash the things that I've said, and
I don't listen to the final product. All I know is what we do here in our recording sessions together. So
Yeah.
I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do in editing. Honestly, I've never listened to the final product.
Yeah, well, in post, I do a lot of getting rid of the trash.
Okay.
So it's possible I have said a quote here or there. This is the first quote that I can remember, and it's a quote that was made by Cliff, and he said, and it really made Steph laugh and giggle a little bit, and it was, it was about, well, I'll read the quote and then we'll talk about it. So he said,
Okay.
"We're not relatives by blood, no pun intended." And it's Cliff's attempt at humor, and it really works well. And, Cliff really killed it with this one. It really goes over well. Brad's looking at me, and he's nodding no. I don't think he thinks that you're laughing. I know, Brad.
Oh, DC. I'm sorry. That quote really got me. That's funny. That was funny.
I know Brad was rolling his eyes the whole time that you were laughing.
I didn't know that. You could see Brad, but
he's right at the window. He's waving at me right now. He's rolling his eyes whenever you talk.
Well, I'm glad that Brad is gonna safely transport you after this episode.
I'm not discussing that. All I know is I'm looking at Brad and he's looking at me, and I don't think he's taking me there. I think he's taking me to a strip club or a bar after this for the look that he's giving me.
I've paid Brad with the money that we've made on the show, with actually all of the money that me and you have made on the show. I've given to Brad, and that's why I'm confident that he's taking you straight to Addictions Orchards and not to a strip club, which let's be honest, Kim, you would not fit in at a strip club.
Well, it's funny that you say that you paid him all that money. He just pulled out a wad of cash. He's looking at me. He's winking at me. So I don't.
That's your hard-earned money, and that went into his pocket. So I can guarantee you that he's taking you to where I told him that he's taking you.
Okay. Well, this will just be between me and him then.
Okay.
Yeah. It will be.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Okay.
Well, that's all the Cliff Notes I had, and I think we should stop it here because that episode was short, and I think our episode should probably reflect theirs. Why don't you go ahead and give the viewers this big announcement that you've promised them?
Yeah. So you were saying that we spent all of our money on this rehab retreat.
That's true.
Which is not entirely true because a portion of the money that we've been making is going towards kind of an exploratory trip that we're taking, and maybe we'll insert some kind of a drum roll here or some kind of music, exciting music, maybe some Journey or something. But I'd like to announce right now that we are going to Forks, Washington to do a podcast live in Forks. So this is the official announcement that we're doing live in Forks, and it'll be recorded next week sometime, and we'll be getting it to you as soon as possible. I don't know what we'll be reviewing. It could be the next installment of this podcast, or it could be us reviewing something else that Cliff has done, or maybe something else Twilight related, but we'll be in Forks. We're going to be reporting from the ground up, and we'll see you there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be in Forks, Washington recording, and it's going to be a hoot, you guys. So make sure that you stay tuned and get ready for one of the most exciting things that we've ever done here at Cliff Notes. We're going to be at Forks, Washington, where Twilight happened, where Bella met Edward, where Cliff got the inspiration to start his podcast, and where Stephanie spent so much time in her mind. And we are so excited to just go there and bring you this live podcast.
Yeah. So make sure you stay tuned on our Instagram stories, on our Twitter. We're going to be hashtagging. We're going to be live tweeting. We're going to be just kind of all over the internet with this. So just be ready for it. It's coming.
Yeah, be ready and get excited, because we're excited. We're excited to be there. We're excited to experience what Forks, Washington is all about.
Yep. So we'll see you next week in Forks. I will not be in rehab because we'll instead be in Forks. So I'm sorry that your planning didn't work out.
Well,
your timing was a
no,
little.
you will be in Forks, but only for the time that we're doing the podcast. You have a home visit during that time, and I'm taking you to Forks, Washington, and then you're going to be shipped right back out. But that is neither here nor there, because we are going to sign off right now. We will see you next week in Forks, you guys.
Okay, I'll see you next week, either from Suicide Watch or from Forks, Washington.
It had better be from Suicide Watch, because I don't want to see you breaking the law by not being in rehab where you're legally obligated to be.
Okay, let's hope there's no sharps in Forks. Okay, good night, folks. It smells like a spicy pepper inside here.